What up, heavy mommies, and welcome to the Cosmic Perspective. On today's episode, I'm going to talk to you about what has been going on in my life. I'm going to give you a nice little life update. I'm going to tell you what's going on in the podcast world for me and what is coming in the future, as well as some future plans of content. So, without further ado, here's the podcast. And I'm going to just have the music play. I'm going to have the music play in the audio version. Whatever, man. I'm really excited about this year, and I'm really excited about doing this very extemporaneously. So keep in mind, I do freestyle these things. I have a general idea what I want to talk about, but I don't rehearse a script. I don't write anything for this shit. I got some bullet points on my iPad here, and that's about it. So keep in mind that I'm just going to keep it real. I'm going to speak honestly. I'm going to speak how I feel, and that's the nature of this podcast. And I do want to dive into my absence because I have been gone for a little bit and I have not been posting, and I think it's important to address those kind of things. I did address it on my Instagram, but I know not all of you guys follow me on Instagram at the Cosmic Perspective Pod, and also at Cosmic Kev 94. Either one of those, feel free to follow me if you want to keep up to date. The Cosmic Perspective Pod is really just going to be clips of my podcast, where the Cosmic Kev is like my personal account. So I'll post, pictures. I might post drone footage. I post all sorts of random shit there. So if you want to get to know me a little bit more personally, my personal Instagram is going to be that. But if you just want to see clips for the channel, I have all the clips on YouTube as well. Feel free to subscribe to the Cosmic Perspective Pod YouTube channel. I have all the links in all of my descriptions of all my podcasts, as well as all the descriptions of all the YouTube links. So if you've already found yourself on YouTube, then you can find that. Okay, now that I got that logistical bullshit out of the way, because as much as I want to be a YouTuber, I also don't want to follow all the YouTube tropes. I'd like to talk about why I took a break. So my last episode was with Jordan Melendez. I really enjoyed that episode. Jordan's an awesome guest. I can't wait to have him back on. Weed is now legal here in Illinois, so it will be nice for him to kind of talk about what that first day was like, and I look forward to bringing him back on for that. And yeah, so on my last episode, I did hint at, some changes coming that would allow me to do this more. And luckily enough for me, those changes did come to fruition, but it did leave me with a period of transition and a period of not posting content, as well as just it being the holidays and it just seeming like not the best time to kickstart everything again. So I got a new job. I was very frustrated with my last job by the end of it. Not the entire time, it was great. It was great when I first got to it, and it was great even for like a year after that. But then it did get to a certain point where I was like, all right, this is starting to hinder me. It used to help me, and it used to give me resources and money and relieve some financial stress, which I was initially under when I first moved here because of the cost of living and not having a proper job for a little bit. And there was a lot of transitions involved when I first moved here. But when I finally got stable and I got to a point where I'm like, all right, cool. My money's right again. I'm in a good spot. I'm making enough money. I got health insurance, all these other things, took care of a bunch of shit. I eventually got to the point where it started getting in the way. It actually started actively stopping me from recording episodes due to the randomness of the schedule. I'd be working at 8 o'clock one day, 9 o'clock another day, 11 o'clock another day after that. And it just was too much. It honestly was too much. And so on top of the fact that the schedule was horrible and that there was no consecutive days in a row off, like I'd have to ask off. If I wanted Saturday, Sunday, I'd have to ask that off. If I wanted 2 days in a row, period, even if it was Monday, Tuesday, that would be something that I would either get very, very lucky with the schedule, or I would ask it off in advance to make sure that I got that. And that just was not sustainable for me. I felt like I never had a break. So I'd be working and I'd have working one day and working another. And then I'd get a day off, and then I'd have to work like 3 days, and then I'd get another day off. And it was like, okay, cool, I got my day off. Oh, I got to go grocery shopping. Oh, I got to do laundry. Oh, I got to clean the apartment or, whatever. And so it's just like, it never felt like I truly was able to unplug. And I think one of the biggest realizations I had was when I first went to Colorado, and I went with Joey and his girlfriend, Sarah. And we had an amazing time. I mean, it really was the best vacation I've ever had in my life. The most fun. It was relaxing. The weather was beautiful. The scenery was incredible. The heavy mommies were born. What you guys are, my fans, the heavy mommies. I'm calling you guys the heavy mommies, and I love it, and I think it's so funny. And I hope it doesn't actually offend anybody. I'm not talking about overweight moms. I'm literally talking about heavy mommies. We embody that big, bold, beautiful, fucking proud, powerful, awakened human beings. You know, some heavy mommy shit is some beautiful, like seeing mountain peaks and watching the sunset and just living a baller life while relaxing and enjoying just existence itself. That's some heavy mommy shit. So just so you guys know. But it was the birth of the heavy mommies. It was the birth of, you know, me wanting to really focus on traveling more moving forward and putting more money towards experiences rather than things. I've spent quite a bit of money on things in the last several years. And these are things, you know, these were investments. These were not things just for fun. I mean, I bought things for fun too, but, you know, a lot of the stuff that I bought and I put money towards has been production value stuff. You know, the lights that are lighting me right now, the gimbal that's holding my phone, even that phone was something that I considered as an investment and something that I was going to use making content moving forward. So I really now want to focus more on spending money on experiences, traveling, and seeing the world. And starting with America first, because, hey, it's way cheaper and there's still a lot to see here. So I really wanted to focus on those things. And I was realizing like the kind of life that I could have if I really was able to start putting more eggs in the basket of content creation and film and shooting things. And when I came back to reality, and I was already frustrated with my job, and I was already frustrated with my time and my schedule and feeling like I was spread thinner than ever, I eventually hit a point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. But like I still had to work. I wasn't going to quit my job. Like I had to keep making money. I still have bills to pay. And so I was feeling trapped. And I was so lucky to have been lent a hand by Daniel, who's been on my podcast twice now, who one day I'm going to have him on the podcast and I'm not going to talk too fucking much. Now, in my defense, Daniel is a quiet guy. So I just have to be smarter about when I draw the line on when I stop talking. So I apologize in advance for any times you guys might have listened to that and been like, shut the fuck up, Kevin, because I feel the same way when I listen to it. Hopefully it's not that bad, but you know what I mean. So he lent me the opportunity to apply to a job at the place that he went. And he used to work with me in retail. And he eventually got a job with them and was really loving it. And he was really liking the company and liking the culture. And he was like, you know what? We have an opening. You should come apply. And I'll refer you. So I was like, all right, okay, cool. And luckily, you know, he's getting a referral bonus for it. So, you know, he benefits from it too. But I'm super happy to be able to help him get that. But he really gave me a lease on life. He gave me an opportunity to get out in a way that was really easy. I didn't have to worry about fucking applying to a bunch of jobs and going through a ton of interviews and not sure about whether the company is a good fit or not. You know, he saved me and streamlined that process for me. And, you know, just like that, it all happened kind of quickly. It was about like a month-long interview process, and I got this job. And this job is way less mentally taxing. It's a little more physically taxing, but I honestly needed it because as I alluded to in the Jordan podcast, I was feeling like I was gaining weight and I was feeling unhealthy and like I wasn't working out enough. And I love that I'm on my feet for this job. And I get like 12,000 steps a day and everything. So it's awesome. It's got a little more physical fitness included in it, but a lot less mental fitness, which is great because I don't want to come home mentally drained and then being unable to edit or do some of the other creative stuff that I want to do. And so this job gives me Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and it gives me my weekends. So I get weekends, I get 2 days in a row, which I can do things like this, record this podcast. This is a Saturday that I'm recording this. And it allows me to kind of have not only my day of productivity and like doing chores and laundry and groceries and all that stuff, but then also having a day of actually unplugging. And I recently got an Xbox because it was like super cheap to buy an Xbox. And I even got the new Jedi Fallen Order game. I barely played it, so I really can't comment on that yet. But I did buy the Master Chief Collection, and I've been, you know, I always enjoyed Halo growing up. And so it's been really fun to play Reach online since they just like updated Reach. They just put it on the Master Chief Collection, and it's been a lot of fun. I've actually been FaceTiming with Brad, who's also on my podcast. He's a childhood friend of mine. He's honestly he's like my brother, dude. We go way back, but we weren't insanely close in the really young days, even though we're in class together in elementary school. But we really bonded in middle school, and we really bonded in high school, and really senior year, I feel like, was when we really became best friends. And he's somebody who now I can connect with, and we'll text each other, be like, yo, Reach tonight, and then we'll FaceTime, and we'll FaceTime while we're playing Reach, and then we'll connect in the game, obviously, and it's been a lot of fun. So overall, my life is way more chill. It's way more relaxing, and I feel so much more energized. I'm getting more sleep. I'm currently on a tea break from cannabis, which I know is funny because it just was legalized here in Illinois. But I honestly didn't want to deal with the lines, and the prices are kind of ridiculous. So I've been taking a break from weed, and it actually goes back to that trip that I had, that I talked about, my heroic dose that I did this past summer, which really alluded to a lot of things. It really alluded to, I think, understanding that I was not using weed in the best way. And I knew that, and then I went to Colorado, and then I kind of fucked it up, and then I came back, and then I was depressed and not happy about the situation, and I was leaning on it as a crutch. And it's funny how weed is like that for me, where I seem to just always use it wrong. I don't know what it is, but I seem to not have good self-control with it. If I have it in the house, I always can rationalize to myself that it's cool to do it at night. I don't know why. And it's not like it's that big of a deal. I've used it way worse. I've 100% used it way worse. And in fact, really ever since I moved to Chicago, my use of it has still been way better than it used to be in college. But it's still, I just think I use it too much, and I lean on it too much to relax, and I think I need to learn how to relax without it. And so I've already been on a tea break this month, and it's been nice. It's been a nice break. I'm going to be honest, I don't feel that different. I almost never do when I take a huge break from weed. It's never that different. I remember my dreams more, but that's probably about it. But I know that it's a good thing for me to not use it as an excuse to fuck off. The resistance is clever, as Stephen Pressfield would say in his book, The War of Art. And it is, and it's clever. And for me, weed is part of the resistance. I think another part of the resistance for me is YouTube. I definitely waste way too much time on YouTube. And so those things were things that were getting in my way, on top of the fact that I was feeling stressed about my job. And so now that I have this new job that gives me a way better schedule, my work-life balance is better, I'm going to the gym, I'm healthier, I've lost 7 or 8 pounds. And I feel like it's very noticeable, and I think it's going to only continue to fall off because, like I said, this job is way more active. And I feel better. Honestly, I just feel better. I feel better and happier. It is not that this job is perfect or that I'm not stressed sometimes at work, but I definitely don't come home with that stress. And that kind of stress is honestly still not as bad as the stress that I felt at my last job. So all things considered, nothing's perfect, but it's exactly what I need right now, which is awesome. Not to mention the people that are there are awesome too. So, I left a lot of really good people at my last place, and I miss them. I still miss them to this day. I miss seeing them every day. But I really just don't miss that environment. So it's really nice to have that separation. So now that we've gotten through kind of the little update here, because I don't want to spend forever talking about my life, I think the big thing that I learned from this process was that burnout is real, and it shows up in ways that you don't always realize it. I knew I was frustrated with my schedule. I knew I was frustrated with my job. I really didn't realize how much it was draining me until I walked away from it. And even just a couple weeks after quitting that job, I gave myself a week in between. It was Thanksgiving. So it was there's no reason to start work on Thanksgiving week. And so I gave myself a week in between to recover, and just getting distance of knowing I never have to go back. You gain some clarity. And I think clarity has been kind of the key of these last couple months for me, is really just reflecting upon what I've learned since I moved here, and what I've learned in this process of solidifying some of these things that I've talked about for a long time. And that I was living in a lot of ways, but really living it in a deeper way than I ever have before. So I think all of that has been huge. I've also really been falling in love with the process. I've really just been enjoying like the steps along the way of figuring shit out. I think that that's so fun. And I think right now, learning from the last time. So full disclosure, I tried recording this kind of episode last week, and I recorded it, and I tried it with a new thing. I was using Filmic Pro, which for those of you who are camera people, you'll know about that app on the phone. It basically lets you have full manual control over your camera. So even when shooting in video, it's actually not a camera app. There's a separate one that I use for the camera. But it let me down, man. You know, it gave me control over the shit, but it froze on me in the middle of recording, and then I couldn't use it. So even though I really enjoyed the audio of that episode, I didn't want my first episode back to be one that wasn't properly filmed. And not to mention, even the lighting looked grainy. I realized I can't use the selfie camera on the phone. It just doesn't look good. I mean, I'm sure you guys don't care. Most people don't care. But I went to school for video production. So as a sense of pride for me and my production value, I knew that I needed to switch to the rear camera. And luckily, they make a remote app. I can see the viewfinder of the phone through like my watch, I learned, which is actually kind of crazy. Like I could see myself right now. But it also can do it on the iPad. And so that's been my solution to set up this shot. And I'm really proud of this setup here. It's all ghetto rigged, but I figured it out. And that's the thing. You learn every time you do something. So let's not get too much into the weeds of the fucking inside baseball. But the point is that learning to love the process and learning to love the experience of making something better and not expecting it to all be perfect once you do it, and letting go of the desire for everything to be this next big, great thing. I put a lot of pressure on myself in that way, where I would always be thinking like, man, well, this next thing needs to be the best thing ever. And it's like, no, sometimes you're going to drop an episode that's not as good as the other ones. That's just how it goes. But you still got to post it. You got to post it and get the feedback. Now, obviously, if it's atrocious or if it makes somebody looks bad, okay, that's fine. You could scrap it then. But like, you got to learn from it. You got to post it and put it out into the world, and you got to see how it's received. Because you'd be surprised how often you will put out a piece of content and think it was lackluster and mediocre, and then other people tell you that it really resonated with them. So I think there's power in sharing your gift to the world, and your gift is not always going to be perfectly wrapped, but sometimes that gift is going to be perfect for what that moment was. And realizing that the moment comes when you're ready. I was listening to a lot of Aubrey Marcus podcasts lately. One of the huge benefits of my job is I can listen to podcasts and listen to music at the job, and it's awesome. I really love that. I'm going to get into audiobooks because I like to read, but I obviously can't read while I'm working, but I can listen to a book while I'm working. So I'm gonna start looking into Audible. I'd love for them to sponsor me, by the way. And so I think changing that view of the results-based thing and realizing that teachers arise when you are ready for them, that's something that Aubrey Marcus talks about a lot, was really powerful to me, where it finally started to resonate. I understood it logically for a while, but I really believe it now on a deeper level. There's like a deep knowing that I have of that when I'm ready for the next thing, it will arise. And I just have to trust that if it hasn't arisen yet, it's probably because I'm not ready. And there's probably still more things that I have to do at the current level that I'm at. And so I feel like now, with my new situation, I've arrived to a point where I now can take it to the next level. I'm ready to really develop and grow this podcast. I'm really ready to develop and grow my docuseries that I've been wanting to shoot for a long time. And so those are some exciting things that I can't wait to really dive into. I can't wait to really show you guys what I'm capable of. And I don't have a lot of resources other than the equipment. I don't have a lot of people that can come help me shoot these things. But I know I can do it. I know I have enough know-how and I have enough equipment to start learning. And it's not going to be perfect, okay? I'm not going to be shooting like fucking Coppola or, it's not going to be Scorsese. But it is going to be what I'm capable of now, and being at peace with the fact that every time I do something new, I'm learning from it, and I will do something a little bit better the next time. And that is one of my main focuses of this podcast, is I want each episode, I want to fix one thing or make one thing a little bit better than the last thing. And sometimes I'm going to have some steps backwards. Sometimes I'm going to talk too much when my guest is on. Sometimes I'm going to, not shoot it right or like fuck up the lighting. I mean, that's probably one of the hardest things for me to do. I know what proper lighting looks like, but it's hard to do it when you're like the one person setting up all the lights for everything, and you're recording, and you're making sure the audio is good, and you got to then host and be in the conversation and immersed. There's a lot of things I have to juggle when I do these podcasts, and I enjoy them, and they're a lot of fun, and I can't wait until I have a producer that can make it a little bit easier for me. But I understand that at the current part of my process, this is what I have to do. And I do have to put a little more time into it. So I'm making a promise to you guys that every time I do one of these, I'm going to do my best to do something better each time. And I'm not always going to succeed, but I am going to try. And I think I'm just going to do it. I mean, I guess, yeah, like now I think try is not even a good word, because it's like Yoda's, like do or do not. There's no try. So I'm going to either do it or I'm not. But there's always going to be an attempt to do it. And whether it is good or isn't will be determined by myself and you guys. So I'm really excited. I'm excited to see what I can do with this, what I can take to the next level with the production, and to continue to evolve and grow, and really just being kinder to myself. I'm really hard on myself. Sometimes to a fault, where I'm just like vicious in my own head. And I've been gaining an awareness of that, of realizing like that there is this like super critical person that is critical for no reason. It's like, but you develop these critical voices from your parents, honestly. And this is not to knock my parents. My parents were wonderful people and they raised me well, but everybody's a human being, right? And so everybody has their shortcomings. And so my parents, they have their shortcomings, and they've imparted those things onto me in some ways. And you have to undo that programming a little bit, because, even if your parents are the best parents in the world, there's still some shit that they've programmed into you that's probably not good for your programming, because nobody's perfect. So what I've been doing, and is really focusing on trying to pay attention to that voice in my head a little bit more, and call it out when it's being overly critical, and realize that I can forgive myself. It's okay. You know what? Yeah, you didn't do that as well as you wanted to, or maybe that was a boneheaded move or whatever, but that's okay. You're learning, and just don't do it again. But even if you do it again, it's not the end of the world. Just learn from it. Sometimes we have to learn the same lesson like 100 times. And I can assure you that I feel like I have. I was recently going through, and I was looking at some old tweets that I tweeted, really just checking to make sure I didn't say anything super offensive or anything, which I didn't, by the way. But I went back and I looked at some old tweets, and I saw some tweets from when I had first tripped. So this is like post first couple acid trips, and maybe post mushroom trip. And that was like my awakening, and I tweeted about it, and you can see it in 2015. It's really cool. Because I was right on the nose on everything that I was saying, but I wasn't living it. So it was an awareness and a knowledge of like what that looked like. So I've talked about this before on the podcast, but psychedelics give you that preview of the mountaintop, but it's still up to you to climb the mountain. You're getting to fly to the peak and you see it, but then you got to fly back down by the end of the trip. And so now I'm realizing how far I've been scaling this mountain, and how much closer to the peak of this mountain is. And eventually I'm going to have to descend from this mountain, and I'm going to have to climb a new, larger mountain. But at this moment in time, I feel like I'm really scaling it properly. I'm scaling it more safely. I'm doing it in a much more reasonable manner. And I think that it's really exciting to see that growth within myself, and to see how I've evolved, despite knowing, like I've known what I've been needing to do for a long time, but it's just not an overnight process. It takes years, and it's literally been almost 5 years now since I first had that awakening. And I think what people need to keep in mind when they're growing and they're learning from people or masters, or, I'm not a master, I'm a regular person. But when you are learning from spiritual masters, or you're learning from other people, to realize that they've had their own journey to get there. And, at some point they were probably where you are in the journey. And so just because somebody's further along than you doesn't mean that you can't get there, or that they somehow are more special than you or something like that. It's like, no, we all can get there if we want to, and if we set the goal and the intention for ourselves. And we all have, our things that we're good at and our limitations, whatever. But everybody can get to the same level of like self-actualization. It just will manifest itself in different ways depending on your personality, your epigenetics. There's like a number of factors that can kind of change what that looks like, but it still can be the same achievable point in time. Sorry, I just needed a sip of water there. So for me, I'm seeing myself and growing and really evolving and maturing, and I'm going to be 26 this year, and I really feel like I've come a long way, a really long way, and I still have a long way to go, but it's a never-ending journey. That's the thing. And because I'm now no longer results driven, it's not about that finished product anymore. It really is about the act of just fucking doing it. I feel good when I do these. I do. It's like such a creative expression. I get some words out. Sometimes I just need to record it. And this is going to sound funny, but like there's a lot of things that I say where I'm like, damn, I wish I recorded that, because I forget the shit. And it's not that I forget it because I can't remember everything I say. I don't think anybody can truly remember everything they say, but like I remember the gist of things that I say. But sometimes I'll say some fucking wisdom that came outside of me. It didn't even feel like it was mine. It feels like I just fucking pulled it out of the universe. And then if I don't write it down, or if I don't put it somewhere, then it's lost and I forget about it. Even these podcasts, like, excuse me, when I go back and I listen to them, especially if I've listened to like a really old episode again, I remember recording them, and I'll even kind of know where it's going as I'm listening to it. But sometimes I forget some of the shit I say in it, where I'm like, damn, that was good. Like that was not me at that point. That was outside of myself. And I think it's really important to record these thoughts. And so I'm not good at it. I wish I journaled more, but I do think the journaling is a useful thing. I think it's useful because you write it down, you have a record, and then you can go back and reflect on it. And so when this first, the new year started, I have a planner. And although this past year I wasn't insanely great at keeping up with it all the time, I did have enough of a lot of the weeks of the year that I did write down what I did. And I did write down how I was feeling. And it was really cool to watch the growth. Like I got to visibly see it reflecting upon the pages, and seeing, the different highs and the lows that I went through. And seeing the things that I did check off my list of things that needed to get done, or things that were putting me closer towards the goal. And I think that that's a really powerful tool that maybe isn't good for everybody, but certainly is good for people who need that. And I'm one of those people. I need that. I need to be able to see that I'm making progress. I need to see that I'm working towards this goal that maybe is very hard to visualize. It's very hard to put into perspective the amount of steps involved in taking to get to where you want to go. And if you knew the amount of steps that were involved in getting to where you wanted to go, you probably wouldn't start. And that's why you just have to start and just go and just take it one day at a time, because you never have more than the 24 hours you have in the day. You never do. You're never going to be expected to do 2 days worth of work in one day, in a literal sense. Maybe in a metaphorical sense you got to, but you can only do what you can do with the time that you have. And understanding that as long as you spend that time the way that you need to, more or less, and you give yourself the allowance of understanding that you're not always going to spend it as perfectly as you'd like to, then you're going to be fine. And you're going to be very surprised at where you are a year from that point, and even a couple months from that point. I started the weight loss journey right as I was about to quit my last job. So I started like realizing, all right, fuck the podcast. I'm going to have to wait until I get this new job. let me focus on going to the gym, because it was always a challenge. I was like, all right, do I go to the gym or do I do the podcast? I couldn't do both sometimes because of the hours in the day, the amount of travel time it takes to go to work, travel time it takes to go back, travel time it takes to go to the gym, travel time it takes to go back, showering, cooking dinner. When you factor all those things in, and you factor in my commute was 45 minutes one way, 45 minutes the other way, and I was there for 9 hours. It was like, and then I also had to sleep for 8 hours, and I never slept for 8 hours. It was like I never had any time. I'm actually amazed that I released 48 episodes in the 2 years that I had started doing it, because I don't know where I found the time to do that, because it would take me hours to edit these podcasts, and I'm not cutting them down at all. I'm just simply cutting between angles. It's a simple edit, but it still takes multiple playthroughs. And then also cut it up into those little snippets to promote, because those snippets are, to me, like the most approachable way for people to get into my podcast. And so it's like a lot of work, and there was a lot of time, and it was a lot of stress. And then I also have other things. I'm a person. I have a life. I'm, dating, and I'm currently in a relationship. And it's a lot. There's a lot that was going on. And so I was always like faulting myself for not finishing things or not doing as much as I could in the day and blah, blah, blah. But like now that I had the context and the separation from that, I'm like, dude, how the fuck did I do all this shit? I don't know how I did it. But that's why it wasn't sustainable. But now in my new situation, it really can be sustainable. I can actually get ahead. I can record a podcast every week. I can plan it out and be like 3 weeks in advance and be like, hey, I know I'm free Saturday and Sunday. Like, can you record at any point in these days? And then I just plan my day around that. So I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to, I'm going to try to have some people on who haven't been on in a long time. I really want to have a lot of them back now that I do it a little differently. I think it'd be exciting. I want to take a new approach to it. Like, I want to have more fun, man. It's not all that serious, like life isn't that serious. Life is a game, dude. And you got to just play the game the way that you want to play it. And you can play it however the fuck you want to play it, dude. That's the best part. Reality is like a co-creation, okay? It's subject and object, okay? It's my subjectivity and all the objects around me, and I can fuck with them in whatever way I want to, and they're gonna fuck with me back, but like that's just the way it is. It's a feedback loop. And like, have fun with it, dude. Like have some fun. Like for me, playing Halo, that's fun. I enjoy doing that. Having some fun, recording these podcasts, fucking around. I smoked weed on them and whatever. And like, hey, now it's legal, so they can't really get me for it. But have fun. Like go fuck somebody. Like go do safe drugs safely and responsibly. That includes alcohol. Draw, play video games, paint, like all those things. Like do what makes you feel alive. Like do what fucking drives you, because what's the point of living if you're not spending at least some of your time doing what you want to do? Obviously, yes, we have sacrifices. Like I still have to work a job because I got to pay my bills and I need money to acquire the resources I need to do the things that I want to do. Yes, you have to make that sacrifice. You have to make that calculation. But if there comes a point where that job is taking everything away from you and you're not getting anything in return, then what the fuck are you doing? Quit that job. Find another one. It is possible. Now, don't quit that job before you find another one. Find another one first. But let's be smart, guys. It's not be dumb and quit your dreams or quit your job and pursue your dreams. Like, be smart, dude. I've been pursuing this dream, but I've been doing it, calculated. I'm not dumb. I'm not going to put myself into debt or put myself in a stressful situation for no reason. I don't want to be doing this because I feel like I need to make money off of it. And oh my God, if I don't do it, I'm not going to survive. Like that's too much pressure. I want to do this because it's fun and I enjoy it. And if it ends up starting to make me money, then cool. Then eventually I'd like it to be my main source of income, but it doesn't need to be right now. It just needs to be fun. It needs to be worth my time and it needs to be a creative expression. And that's what it is. And so that's why I'm so excited to do this fucking podcast and shoot the docuseries and really start making content for you guys in a way that I just couldn't before, but now I can. So I'm really excited. I'm, and I've said it like 1,000 times in this podcast, but like the future's great. Like 2020 is gonna be awesome. Let's get fucking Trump out of office. Let's get my boy Bernie in there. I know people hate it when I go political, and I'm sorry, but it's too important. I'm just not, like, I have certain values that I really stand for. And I think one thing I really want to make clear is like, it's not about Bernie. It really isn't. It's actually about the grassroots movement that is behind him. It's about the coalition, the largest multiracial, multi-class coalition in the history of this country. And he's basically a continuation on the poor people's movement from MLK. And so I know that it annoys people when I post it, and I'm sorry. I get it. I'm not trying to be the annoying guy that thinks he's always right on politics. I'm not. But what I do want to do is I want to show you guys stuff that I know the media is literally actively trying to mislabel, to hide it, to smear. I mean, this latest attack on Bernie being sexist, like, are you serious, dude? Have you guys met Bernie? Have you seen Bernie? He's the least sexist motherfucker in the world. So, for me, it's just about exposing people to the ideas and exposing people to his true platform in a way that I think most people don't realize how much they actually agree with Bernie. Because they just hear the word socialist and they're like, oh, I don't want to do that. Capitalism's great. But it's like, dude, yeah, certain aspects of capitalism are great. But then there are other aspects of capitalism that is entirely dependent upon exploitation of labor. Sorry, my throat's a little scratchy here. I've been battling a cold. But the exploitation of labor is like literally built into the system. It isn't unavoidable. It's not an accident. It's a byproduct. And I think people just need to inform themselves a little bit more about really what these candidates represent. And you're not going to get that from some analysis of some, CNN pundit or MSNBC or anybody that's part of the major networks that are all bought and paid for by fucking corporate America. And I think there are a lot of YouTubers out there who, they have their bias 100%, and you have to go in there knowing what their bias is, but they're honest about it. And so they're not trying to pretend to you like they don't have an opinion. They're telling you what their opinion is, but at least then you go into that with with that expectation. So, I listen to a bunch of them. Like, I listen to Michael Brooks. I listen to Sam Cedar. I listen to Kyle Kalinske. I listen to The Humanist Report with Mike Figueredo. I listen to Rational National with David Dole. Like, I listen to a bunch of them, and yes, they're all left leaning. I'm sorry. That's what I believe in. So, I'm not a right winger. Like, I believe that we should put in social programs that take care of people. But that being said, I diversify my opinions, and I don't blindly agree with any one of the YouTubers, but I respect their opinion, and I hear it and I listen to it. I'm like, okay, cool. Based on the information, and I'll listen to the same story covered by a bunch of the YouTubers. So I feel like I have a more comprehensive view of it. And they're not all identical. They do have differing views on different things, and they have different takes, and they have different angles that they take, and they're all valuable to me, and they're all genuine. Whereas the pundits on CNN, MSNBC, some of these people that are on there are literally paid operatives of the Democratic Party, which have a vested interest in not letting somebody like Bernie Sanders win, because that means that it's the end of their whole fucking money parade. So, for me, I like to try to inform people of that point of view. Because I think a lot of people who are apolitical, who are just not paying attention, low information voters, they don't know that. They just hear the headlines and like, oh yeah, I don't know. I heard like Bernie's sexist or something. I don't know. It's like, it's so disappointing. And at this point, nothing is clearer to me than the fact that, and people are going to hate me for this, but to me, Bernie's the only candidate that actually I think will beat Trump that really can win the nomination. And I know that there are going to be Yang supporters and there are going to be Tulsi supporters that are going to be like, fuck you, Kevin, blah, 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 blah. I like them, okay? There are aspects that I like about Tulsi. There are things that make me question her a little bit, but there are things I really like about her. And then there are things I really like about Andrew Yang, and then there's things I don't like, But overall, I know they're both genuine, Like Andrew Yang is a totally genuine dude. I completely disagree with his healthcare plan. And I love his idea of basic income. I don't want other programs to get cut in lieu of that, because that won't solve the problem. If you have basic income by itself, which is, I love basic income and I support the idea of it. But if you have basic income by itself and you don't have cost controls built into other things, that $1,000 will go out the window right away. There are other protections that you need to place for people in order for basic income to work and to truly actually give $1,000 in everybody's pocket. But I completely agree with the concept of it, and I would love to see that implemented in some form, in addition to the other social programs that I think are necessary for a functioning democracy. And getting money out of politics is probably the number one thing that we need to do. So I don't want to go too much on like a political rant here, but just know that I am going to talk about politics because this election is way too important. And at this point, there's only one real candidate who's actually standing up for the people. I don't agree with everything that Bernie says. You can't agree with any politician on everything. But he is at least the most genuine, and he's the only person who speaks to the nuance of things. All these debates, the debaters never want like Bernie to connect multiple ideas. Like, God forbid that there are racial issues that are actually directly connected to environmental justice. And, God forbid these things are somewhat interconnected. It's like, what a mind-blowing concept. But like, yes, they're all interdependent. All of these issues are related. You can't solve one issue without addressing another one. And that's what makes things complicated and is kind of, makes your brain hurt. But it's the reality of things. And so that's why in order to solve the healthcare situation, you also are going to have to address a couple other problems in order to kind of fix all of them. But that being said, you don't have to fix everything at once. You just need to turn a couple knobs and levers of government to make some of these other things work. And that's just what I want to see. And can Bernie solve everything by himself? Of course not. Is Congress going to actively fight against him? Definitely. But is he going to shift the narrative and change the popular position within the American people? Yes. I think he will educate people in a way that if he's president, the media can't ignore him. I mean, they have to cover the president. So they might smear him and make him dishonest or not make him dishonest, but they will dishonestly represent him and misrepresent him. But at least then people can hear it straight from the horse's mouth, and they can ignore the commentators that are purposely trying to, tank his situation and tank everything that he stands for. Because guess what? The owners of this country don't want you to have these things. The owners of this country would rather make a buck than save, people. I read an article the other day that if we raise the minimum wage by $1, it would reduce suicides dramatically. I mean, this is a life and death thing then. And healthcare is already a life and death thing, literally, because it's people not being able to afford their medication, rationing their medication, rationing their insulin, and dying because, they can't afford the ridiculous prices that no one else in the world pays from the same companies that sell it to them. Our American companies price gouge Americans, but then they don't price gouge Canadians because they're not allowed to. So there are just things like that I'm like, I'm sorry. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. How can you be against this? How can you be against helping people? And I get that some people, their philosophy is like, fuck everyone else. I only care about my family. I literally had a dude fucking try to argue that to me on a Facebook post. And he's like, you'll never get me to think communal, which I'm like, all right, bro. But I mean, we all live in a community. I mean, the country's kind of a big community, bro. I mean, I hate to break it to you, but when other people suffer, you suffer. Yeah. Which is why I started the war in Iraq. No, but for real, like when other people suffer, you're going to suffer. So when other people are starving, they're going to act out in ways that you're going to end up feeling the effects of. And I think just realizing that you can't just say fuck everyone else and that it's in your own best interest to help other people, I think eventually we'll live in a better world when that's the case. So I don't want to keep rambling. I've already been probably doing this podcast for too long. What has it been, 30 minutes or so? But I'm excited, guys. Be on the lookout for content. I want to truly make this weekly. So I'm recording this now. I'm going to try to record another one after this before I even drop this episode. So hopefully by the time you're hearing this, I already have another one on deck and ready to go and another one lined up because I want to actually post one most of the weeks in the year. I'm not going to promise every week. Let's be real. Life happens, things happen, vacations, etc. But I would like to get ahead and truly release on a weekly predictable schedule for you. I'm going to figure out what day makes the most sense for me to post for you guys. So, stay tuned to that. I'll update as I figure that out. And this whole year is going to be a learning process. So it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be, this amazing, incredible thing right away. But I think by the end of the year, this podcast will really start to form what it's always been destined to be. And that is going to be really cool. And there's no pressure, man. It's going to happen as it happens. And I'm going to learn what I learn as I go. And I'm going to try to do just one thing better every single time. And I suggest that you guys do that too. and the things that you're working on, don't try to fix it all at once. Don't try to make it perfect. Perfectionism is like a bad thing. It's something that it's one of my best and worst qualities, So just try to do it a little better each time. And eventually that will add up to a major difference if you're doing it enough. So get your reps in, practice, put in the 10,000 hours or whatever. But those hours need to be quality hours. It can't just be a lazy 10,000. You gotta spend it with your whole heart. But I look forward to talking with you guys more. I look forward to having on my guests. I look forward to really expanding what this podcast is capable of. And I love you all. Peace out, heavy mommies. Let's stay on that heavy mommy shit and let's have a good 2020, man.